Picture this. You're crouched in a dark alley at 2 a.m., your hands are covered in spray paint, and you're 1 block away from finishing an illegal mural on the side of an abandoned warehouse. Your heart is racing because you hear sirens in the distance, and getting caught could mean jail time, a criminal record, and the end of any chance at a legitimate art career. This is your life as a street artist, creating beauty in the shadows, risking everything for work that most people consider vandalism, knowing that your art will probably be painted over within days. Now imagine that 15 years later, one of your pieces sells at Christie's auction house for $195 million, making it the most expensive artwork by a living artist ever sold. Museums that once called police to have you arrested are now begging to display your work. Art critics who dismiss street art as vandalism are writing dissertations about your technique, and billionaire collectors who wouldn't have looked at you twice are competing to own anything with your signature. This is the impossible story of Marcus Cole, a kid from South London, who went from running from police to running the contemporary art world, proving that sometimes the difference between vandalism and genius is just a matter of who's paying attention. His journey challenges everything the art establishment believed about what makes art valuable, who deserves to be called an artist, and whether the rules that govern the art world serve creativity, or just protect gatekeepers. But how does someone with no formal training, no gallery connections, and a criminal record for property damage become the most influential artist of his generation? How does work created illegally in the middle of the night become more valuable than paintings by masters who spent lifetimes perfecting their craft in prestigious studios? The answer lies in understanding that sometimes the most powerful art is the kind that refuses to ask permission. Marcus's story doesn't begin with artistic ambitions or dreams of gallery success. It starts with anger, alienation, and a spray can that offered a way to make his voice heard in a world that seemed determined to ignore him. Growing up in a South London housing estate in the late 1990s, Marcus was surrounded by concrete poverty and the kind of systematic neglect that makes young people feel invisible. His school was underfunded, his neighborhood was over-policed, and the future that adults described for kids like him seemed limited to low-wage jobs or unemployment. I was angry about everything, Marcus recalls, angry about how we lived, angry about how nobody seemed to care, angry about how the city was full of expensive art in galleries that people like me would never be welcome in. I wanted to do something that forced people to see us, to acknowledge that we existed and had something to say. Marcus's introduction to graffiti came through older kids in his estate, who would sneak out at night to tag walls and trains. At first he was just fascinated by the rebellion of it. The risk, the adrenaline, the thrill of leaving your mark on a city that tried to erase people like him. But Marcus quickly became obsessed with the artistic possibilities of spray paint. While other taggers focused on letters and signatures, Marcus started experimenting with images, faces, figures, and scenes that told stories about life in forgotten neighborhoods. His early work was crude and technically unsophisticated, but it showed something important. Marcus had an intuitive understanding of composition, color, and emotional impact that couldn't be taught in art schools. His pieces made people stop and look, even when they appeared on walls that thousands of people passed daily without noticing. I didn't know anything about art history or technique, Marcus explains. I just knew what felt powerful when I saw it, and I tried to create images that would make people feel something: anger, sadness, recognition, anything except indifference. Marcus's street art evolved rapidly through obsessive practice and constant experimentation. He would spend entire nights creating pieces, racing against dawn and police patrols, developing speed and technical skill that allowed him to execute complex images in remarkably short time. By age 17, Marcus had developed a distinctive style that combined photorealistic portraiture with surreal elements and stark political messaging. His pieces depicted ordinary people from his neighborhood in situations that challenged viewers' assumptions about poverty, race, and urban life. One early piece showed an elderly woman from his estate dressed as a queen, sitting on a throne made of garbage bins. Another depicted children playing football on a street where the ball had been replaced with earth, suggesting that their games mattered as much as any global event. The images were powerful, disturbing, and impossible to ignore. But Marcus's work also attracted attention from police who viewed street art as vandalism that needed to be prosecuted rather than celebrated. He was arrested multiple times for property damage, spent nights in jail, and accumulated a criminal record that would make legitimate art careers extremely difficult. The establishment's message was clear. Marcus reflects, if you're not rich enough to buy canvas and rent studio space, if you're not connected enough to get into art schools, then you don't deserve to be an artist. Your expression is criminal, your voice doesn't matter, and you should just accept your place. But Marcus's arrests and the establishment's hostility only increased his determination to create art that challenged the systems that wanted to silence him. If galleries wouldn't show his work, he would turn the entire city into his gallery. If critics wouldn't review his pieces, he would create images so powerful that people couldn't help but discuss them. Marcus's breakthrough moment came when he created a piece that went viral before social media made that easy. On a wall facing a busy London intersection, he painted a massive mural showing a businessman in an expensive suit holding a sign that read "Will Oppress for food," a darkly satirical inversion of homeless people's panhandling signs. The image was photographed by commuters, shared through early social networks and email forwards, and quickly became a cultural reference point for conversations about economic inequality and corporate power. Art bloggers started writing about it, news outlets covered the controversy over whether it should be removed or preserved, and suddenly Marcus had an audience far beyond people who happened to walk past his walls. More importantly, the viral success demonstrated something that the traditional art world had been slow to recognize: street art could generate cultural impact and public engagement that gallery art rarely achieved. Marcus's work was reaching millions of people who would never visit museums or contemporary art exhibitions. This democratization of art distribution challenged fundamental assumptions about how art gained value and cultural significance. The art establishment operated on scarcity, limited pieces shown in exclusive spaces to select audiences who had the education and wealth to access them. Marcus operated on abundance, creating public work that anyone could see, photograph, and share without permission from gatekeepers. But Marcus's growing fame created unexpected complications. Some of his murals became so popular that building owners who had originally wanted to paint over them now tried to protect the artwork, recognizing its value as cultural landmarks and tourist attractions. Property developers began commissioning Marcus to create pieces that would increase the value of their buildings and developments. "I started getting paid to do what I had been getting arrested for," Marcus explains. "Same art, same technique, same messages, but suddenly it was legal because rich people realized they could profit from it." This commercialization created ethical tensions that Marcus struggled to navigate. Accepting commissions provided income and legitimacy, but risked compromising the rebellious authenticity that made his street art powerful. Creating legal murals felt safer but less urgent than illegal work that carried genuine risk. Marcus's solution was to maintain both practices, continuing illegal street art that addressed political and social issues, while accepting selected commissions that would fund his artistic independence. This dual approach allowed him to support himself through art, while maintaining the critical edge that gave his work cultural relevance. His strategy attracted attention from Melissa Zhang, a young gallery owner who had been following Marcus's work and believed that street art deserved recognition in traditional art spaces. She approached Marcus with an unusual proposal: a gallery exhibition that would bring his street art aesthetic into a formal art context without compromising its political content or accessibility. Marcus was skeptical about galleries, viewing them as part of the establishment that had dismissed street art as vandalism. But Zhang's approach was different. She wanted to challenge the art world's assumptions rather than force Marcus to adapt to their expectations. The resulting exhibition, held in a East London warehouse rather than a traditional gallery space, featured large-scale canvases that recreated the aesthetic and immediacy of Marcus's street work while allowing collectors to own pieces that couldn't be painted over or demolished. The opening attracted an unusual mix of attendees: street art fans, traditional collectors, art critics, and media representatives, who were curious about whether street art could translate to gallery contexts. The response was overwhelming, with every piece selling within the first hour at prices that shocked both Marcus and Zhang. "People were paying thousands of pounds for work that I would have created illegally on walls for free," Marcus recalls. "It was bizarre and validating and uncomfortable all at the same time. Suddenly the same establishment that had called my work vandalism was treating me like a serious artist worthy of investment." The exhibition's success launched Marcus into the contemporary art world's upper tier, with subsequent shows in major galleries across Europe and North America. His work began appearing in auction houses, where pieces that had sold for thousands were reselling for tens of thousands as collectors recognized Marcus's cultural influence and investment potential. But Marcus's most controversial and ultimately most valuable work emerged from his decision to create a piece that directly challenged the art market's relationship with money, exclusivity, and cultural value. The piece, titled "Consumed," depicted a young child reaching toward a shimmering pile of gold coins that on closer inspection were revealed to be made of garbage and refuse. The image worked on multiple levels: as commentary on consumerism, as critique of how wealth corrupts innocence, and as reflection on society's tendency to value appearance over substance. But what made Consumed extraordinary was Marcus's decision to create it as a publicly accessible mural, while simultaneously producing a canvas version for auction. The mural appeared overnight on a wall in central London, quickly becoming an Instagram sensation and tourist destination. Within days, millions of people had seen the image in person or through photographs shared on social media. The work had already achieved massive cultural impact before the auction version was even offered for sale. When Christie's auctioned the canvas version of Consumed, the bidding started at $5 million and quickly escalated as collectors competed for ownership of a work that had already become culturally iconic. The final price of $195 million shattered records for living artists and forced the art establishment to acknowledge that street art had evolved from vandalism to one of the most valuable and influential forms of contemporary art. The sale generated intense media coverage and public debate about art valuation, cultural significance, and whether work created for public spaces should be privately owned. Critics argued that the $195 million price tag proved that the art market had lost connection with artistic value and was simply speculating on cultural commodities. Supporters claimed the price validated street art's importance and recognized Marcus's influence on contemporary visual culture. Marcus's response to the record-breaking sale was characteristically conflicted. It's absurd that one painting sold for enough money to fund art programs in every underfunded school in London. But it's also validation that work created outside traditional systems, by people without formal credentials, can be recognized as culturally significant. The price is ridiculous, but it forces the establishment to acknowledge that their gatekeeping doesn't determine what's valuable. The success of Consumed transformed Marcus's career and influence. Museums that had once called police to remove his illegal murals now competed to acquire his work for permanent collections. Art critics who had dismissed street art as juvenile vandalism now wrote scholarly analyses of his techniques and themes. Universities offered him teaching positions despite his lack of formal art education. But perhaps the most significant impact of Marcus's success was how it changed opportunities for other street artists and outsider creators who had been excluded from traditional art world recognition. Galleries began actively seeking street artists, collectors started investing in work by self-taught creators, and the definition of what qualified as serious art expanded to include forms that had previously been dismissed as low culture. Marcus used his platform and resources to support other artists from non-traditional backgrounds, establishing a foundation that provided materials, legal support, and exhibition opportunities for creators who faced the same barriers he had encountered. The foundation became a model for how successful artists could use their privilege to expand access rather than defending exclusive systems. Today, at 38 years old, Marcus Cole is recognized as one of the most influential contemporary artists working, with pieces in major museums worldwide, and a cultural impact that extends far beyond the art world. His work continues to address social and political issues, though he maintains the practice of creating illegal street art alongside commissioned pieces and gallery work. But Marcus's greatest legacy might be how he challenged and ultimately changed what the art establishment recognizes as valuable. His journey from criminal vandal to record-breaking artist proved that cultural significance doesn't require permission from gatekeepers, that authentic expression can emerge from anywhere, and that sometimes the most important art is created by people who refuse to wait for traditional systems to validate their voices. The art world wanted us to believe that you needed their approval to be an artist, their galleries to be seen, their critics to be recognized. Marcus reflects, "We proved that wrong. We created art that mattered to millions of people without asking permission from anyone. The establishment eventually had to acknowledge that, but by the time they did, we had already won." Marcus's influence extends beyond his own success to include fundamental changes in how contemporary art is created, distributed, and valued. Street art has evolved from criminal subculture to recognized art form, self-taught artists are taken as seriously as academy-trained creators, and public art is understood as having cultural value that can exceed gallery-exhibited work. His story has become a case study in how outsider voices can transform established fields when their work resonates with broader audiences that traditional gatekeepers had been ignoring. Business schools study his approach to building a career outside traditional systems, sociology programs analyze how his work addressed social issues, and art schools teach his techniques despite having once dismissed street art as unworthy of academic attention. The boy who started by illegally spray painting walls in South London became a man whose work redefined what contemporary art could be, and who deserved to create it. His journey proves that sometimes the most transformative cultural contributions come not from people who master existing systems, but from those who challenge the assumption that those systems should determine who gets to participate in cultural creation. Marcus Cole's legacy reminds us that valuable art can emerge from unexpected places when creators have the courage to express themselves authentically regardless of whether traditional gatekeepers approve. That cultural impact matters more than institutional validation, and that sometimes the most important thing an artist can do is refuse to accept that their voice doesn't deserve to be heard. His story continues to inspire creators from non-traditional backgrounds who recognize that they don't need permission from established systems to make meaningful cultural contributions. They just need the courage to create work that resonates with audiences who are hungry for authentic voices, addressing real issues in accessible ways.